Hey everyone, I'm Angela Taylor, CEO and founder of First Fridays Boise, and this is First Fridays Boise, a spotlight on. Spotlight on is where we shine a light on the people, the stories, and the culture that power our community. And today's guest is really no stranger to both the rhythm of jazz and the pulse of purpose. He's a world class saxophonist who got his start just down the road in Mountain Home, Idaho. And since then, he's been performing on global stages. And now he's coming home to headline our May 2nd First Fridays Boise Rhythm and Roots event at the historic Erma Hayman House. Please welcome the incredibly talented Thomas Hutchings.
Hey, Angela, how are you?
Hey, doing great, Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us here on First Fridays Spotlight. How are you doing?
Good. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about myself and music and, you know, coming from Boise and doing my thing here in New York City.
Absolutely. It feels a little bit about like old home back in the day. We won't name any names or dates to age us. Or
That's
certainly when we both lived in New York City at the same time,
right.
and just a thrill to kind of bring it full circle and have you performing
Mhm.
back here in Boise, which I know you do on a regular basis, but really special that you're doing it with First Fridays Boise, and then a special VIP performance right after. But so welcome back in advance. As we mentioned, you're a Mountain Home native who's been lighting up jazz stages, really, and just performance stages around the world. Can you take
Yeah.
us back to your roots, back to Mountain Home, junior high, high school, and what was it
Oh, yeah.
like in Mountain Home, and when did music enter the picture for you?
Well, I moved to Mountain Home in 1974. We got stationed there in Mountain Home at the Air Force Base. And let's see, I started playing saxophone when I was about 11 there. I went to East Elementary. And they showed some cartoon, and I thought music was a lot easier than it turned out to be because all the instruments had arms and they played themselves. So I thought I was just going to show up and these things were just going to happen on their own, not knowing the work ethic involved later as I got a little bit more involved. But I went on to get more involved into like school music and stuff, being in the concert band, and then eventually in high school studying a little bit of jazz and being the drum major, for the marching band and stuff like that. And eventually got a scholarship to Boise State University, started studying saxophone there, playing at local bands in Boise at bars that I'm sure everybody's familiar with, like Graney's and the Blues Bouquet, and you know, you name it, I probably played there. Uh, Also in Sun Valley, Ketchum, places like that. And just sort of pursuing music full time. At the time, I was studying secondary music ed, and I just got bit by the bug of wanting to perform more. Two stories stick out to me that made it sort of evident that I should probably pursue music full time as a performer. And the first one was I got hired to play with Bruce Willis. He had a band called the Accelerators at the time, and they played at this club called the Dynamite Lounge on Sun Valley, I think, or maybe Ketchum. And I was considering moving to New York City, and I sat down with him in the green room, and it was one of my first days with him, and I was like, "Hey, Bruce, I have a question for you." And he was like kind of hoarse from singing all night because he sang and played harmonica, and he goes, "Yeah, what's the question?" He's, "Go ahead." And I was like, "I'm thinking of moving to New York City. Like, what do you think of that?" And he's like, "Yeah, definitely move to New York City." uh, and that just inspired me to like pursue it a little more heavily. The other thing was that I saw the comedian Tommy Davidson at a club called the Funny Bone. I'm not sure if it's even still there, but I went and saw that, and that show. Someone had invited me, and then after that show, I think he was there for 2 nights, and after that show, I went to the Blues Bouquet. I think it might have been the next night, or I was at the Blues Bouquet at the Blues Jam, and I ran into him. He was there. So I just got off stage after jamming, and I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, I'm at the time I'm like a teenager. I'm probably like 19, I think, maybe even 18. And I said, I'm considering moving to New York City. What do you think? And he literally looked around the room like, yes, definitely move to New York City. Like, why are you here? Which I thought was hilarious. So, but those two incidents, those two moments in my life sort of convinced me that, I probably should make a move if I want to pursue music full time. And so I did. I got a job at the Power Bar Factory, and I stopped taking classes. I saved up some money, about $1,100, and then I told my mom I was going to move to New York City, and she was like, "Are you sure?" All my teachers were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to move to New York City." So I booked a plane ticket. I got on the plane. I bought a one-way ticket. That's all I could afford. And I stayed with my friend Jake's mom in her house for like about 2 months or 3 months. And then, took a bag of clothes and a Walkman and some cassettes and my saxophone to New York. And I got there and I stayed with my friend Jake for, as long as it took to find a job and a place to live. And then, that's sort of where the story of New York begins. And
Wow,
the
that's
Boise
incredible.
sort of ends, but sort of it's all intertwined.
So incredible. So Bruce Willis, Tommy Davidson, and $1,100 was the kind of origin story for Thomas Hutchings and
Yeah.
everything that you're doing.
Oh man.
I absolutely love that story. And the Funny Bone is no longer here, but the Lounge at
No,
the End of the Universe, where you'll be performing,
that's
is
right.
actually
That's right.
owned by the same owners in Brian Lee. But I
Yeah.
love that story for so many different reasons, and the fact that when you talk to your teachers, your friends, your family, they were a little bit hesitant about you moving to New York. Because the same thing was my experience when
Mhm.
I got ready to move to New York. And the one factor that helped my mother feel more comfortable with it was that Thomas Hutchings lived in New York. She made sure that I had his
Wow.
phone number
Okay.
and wanted me to reach out as soon as I could, because at least
Oh,
that made it feel like there was a connection in New York City. And the rest is history. I was there for about 10 years, and
mm,
several of those years, when friends from Mountain Home would come to town, we would try to come see you play. And it was just like such a proud moment to see you up on stage. Thomas, you've performed in New York City, in Europe, and beyond. Like
yeah.
some of the places that you have on your social
Yeah.
media feed you're playing is amazing. What
Yeah.
keeps you grounded as an artist, and how have your Idaho roots shaped your musical journey?
Um, well, if we want to start with just the musical journey in Idaho, I played with a band called the Rhythm Mob. That was my very first band. The first professional gigs I got hired for. I think the first gig I ever did was a wedding at Baldy Base Camp in I want to say Ketchum, but that might be in Sun Valley. I don't even know if it still exists, but it was at a lodge there, and it was a wedding. And these guys in the Rhythm Mob, we would go to their house every day and rehearse. And then that band, partially because of my friend Jake, who was the vocalist in that band, was the reason that we ended up moving. That I ended up moving to New York, because he moved there and sort of paved the way for me to follow his footsteps and have a reason to go. So that's sort of the one of the reasons I chose New York. The other reason was I just didn't know where else to go. And that was a place where, of course, I had people that I knew, like him. And then eventually I met Paul Tillotson there, really fantastic pianist, super cool human being, and some other musicians that were there from Idaho that I eventually met. But those two sort of kept me in line and showed me the ropes, so to speak. As far as what grounds me, I like to come from a place of gratitude. And the other thing that I think is important to me is work ethic. I just like to stay busy. So those two things, gratitude and work ethic, a little bit of discipline, and a lot of tenacity to just follow things through, have helped me to become who I am and sort of maintain a lifestyle of being a full-time musician for many, many years. We're talking decades now. And, you learn as you go and you grow as you go. It's a lot of the same for everyone in every industry. You just kind of fall into the things, people ask you to do things and then they become a career. You get called for a specific thing because it's you, especially if you're authentic. And you come from a place of like love and kindness and gratitude. Usually people want to be around you. So I get a lot of work for those reasons. Plus, I like to be prepared for things when I show up.
Yeah, that is definitely evident in many different ways. And I love the juxtaposition of those two words, gratitude and tenacity, right? I think sometimes people feel like they're at odds, right? But it really does, like the fuel behind your fire, but you still have remained so humble and down to earth and accessible, which is one of the things that I really applaud and appreciate about you. And when I think about it, as I stand right here at the venue where you'll be performing on May 2nd, the Erma Hayman House, such a historic place here in Boise. I know that you play a lot of different genres of music, but you're going to play jazz here in honor of Erma Hayman
Oh yeah.
and the kind of Black culture here in Idaho that was prevalent early on. Many things that we don't even know about or folks aren't even aware about. But
Hmm.
what is it about jazz that continues to draw you in, Thomas? And what do you love the most about this genre as a form of creative and cultural expression?
That's a deep question. Wow.
We're
Jazz
going to
is
share on
the well, jazz is the original music of revolution. Jazz music came from originally the expression of oppression in general. The history of jazz goes back to early origins of slaves. People that were here against their will. All they had were their voices. All they had were rhythms, and those became eventually what jazz become. Jazz is sort of the combination of Western influences meeting African and Afro-Latin influences, musically, rhythmically, harmonically, even. So those early jazz musicians from the 20s and 30s, I would say, were probably taking what would be at the time show tunes and popular love songs and things and turning them into instrumentals or seeing them in a different way that would be presented more presentable to the culture of Black people at the time. So a lot of the early jazz, even later in the 50s, when you get into like the civil rights movement, reflected a lot of what was happening in society. So with the civil rights movement, you have a lot of jazz musicians that were expressing what was happening to them at the time through their music. John Coltrane with Alabama in the 60s, and there were some really, really heavy, heavy pieces of music that came later. But most of those songs that you think are like celebratory songs, or maybe that are just like huge hits, are really songs about struggle and survival for people that were oppressed, And this was the one way that they could express how they felt about the situations they were experiencing. Like a lot of jazz musicians, and this still holds true today, couldn't perform at like clubs. So I mean that doesn't hold true today, but like some of the effects of that are still there. Like still today in New York City, you can't go through the front door of a venue in a lot of the hotels places when you play there as a musician, which is just silly. Um, but they make you go through. I mean, the door could be right next to. It could be the door that you have to go through is right next to the front entrance, and you can't walk in the front entrance. And I believe that has something to do with some sort of carryover from Jim Crow type ideology, of like you can't use the same entrance as everyone else, and it's to me uh it's like a vestigial you know limb or something that's just left over. So things like that, you know uh those musicians had to go through a lot just to express themselves, and not to say there weren't people that were advocates that were on the same side of many different races aside from Black that also wanted, some equality and equity. So it's a long story. Jazz has, many influences and many sort of many I don't know, just a lot of different facets.
Yeah,
That's,
well, thank you for that kind of perspective. And if you don't go to any show, really, in a lot of different places, but certainly New York, whether it's a Broadway play, or if you go to a concert in the village, you do see that. Like, you might, by the front entrance where everyone is lined up waiting to go inside, the musicians or the actors, actresses are like literally walking into a door steps away. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I making that
At
connection.
certain levels, I mean, it makes sense because you're like, oh, this is like, they're maybe so notorious or so famous that
Yeah,
they have to
excited.
sort of sneak in. Sneaking in
Yeah,
is different from when you're playing at a
exactly.
venue and you're
Yeah,
you're just showing up to do your sound check and you're told you can't go in the front door.
yeah. There's not a lot of sneaking in when the line of the audience is like watching you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
entrance
yeah,
here.
that's a little
But
different,
yeah,
but that
yeah,
this kind of thing is happening less and less in New York, so I should say the conditions are improving actually for musicians as far as respectability. I don't know where it came from or how, but maybe it's just because time is passing and people are realizing they're just human beings being human,
yeah, yeah,
which is a great outcome for me. I love that. I love that. There's nothing more like just being and feeling like you're fully realizing your human potential, and everyone can share that same experience. So
yeah. I'm sure it's been really fascinating to see the evolution as you're right in the midst of it over the years and over your career. How music and art is certainly in the creative economy. We're starting to talk about that a lot in Boise. The
oh,
creative economy, whether it's with Tree Ford and the musicians, or if it's a comedy club, or it's with Indulge Boise food tours. Like, you have these, creative artists doing some really amazing things, and it's starting to be more mainstream. And so when I think about that, Thomas, you'll be headlining First Fridays Boise Rhythm and Roots, and it's at this
right.
historic location here, the Erma
Erma
Hayman
Hayman
House
House. Yeah.
on River Street in Boise. It's a place that's rich with Black history here in Idaho. What does it mean to you, someone who grew up right down the road, 45 minutes away in Mountain Home? What does it mean to you to bring your music back to this space in particular, the Erma Hayman House, and to be part of a celebration of Black and Brown professionals through First Fridays Boise?
I think it's a testament to the fact that we actually have people that care about it, for one. Because when I was growing up there wasn't a lot of representation. In fact, I have a funny story about that. When I was probably in ninth grade, I had a teacher that wanted me to do a career project, and I really wanted to focus on music, and I could not find any musicians. And if I did, I couldn't find any musicians that looked like me. And I didn't have a way to really complete that project, and I ended up eventually failing because I was like, I really can't find anyone that's doing anything that's not that I'm interested in. And the teacher eventually failed me, uh, which it was like the project you had to pass too. So I ended up having to retake English the following year. So, but that to me was my initiation basically into what it means to be underrepresented, and that's not the fault of anyone local or any specific person. It's just a sort of like in general that just doesn't happen. So I think it's important to have representation. I really think it's even more important that people organize it in a way that it feels authentic, and it feels like it's heartfelt, so that the people involved really get a sense that there's some sort of community that's being built that's going to be meaningful for a long time, and it's going to have meaningful outcomes for everybody involved. I love connecting people. I'm a connector, so that's important to me. I use music as a connection, as a way of connecting people. I love producing music, and I love hiring my friends and connecting them all through a song. They might never even meet because they're in other parts of the world, but they'll record parts of the song from wherever they are, and then I'll patch them all together and turn that into something. So, and they're from everywhere, so that's where the diversity comes in. That
Yeah,
that I like to involve in my music, which is super eclectic. I do everything from like hip hop to jazz to funk to classical music to you name it. I've scored short films with classical music, all the way to like playing like at Carnegie Hall, doing like folk songs and playing with jazz groups, things like that. So
awesome, awesome. Well, you hit it on the nail on the head. I mean, that's what we're really excited about creating with First Fridays Boise, which is a place in a space where Black and Brown professionals here in the Treasure Valley, a growing number of folks who may feel like you're isolated or in a silo in your workplace, or as you move here and you don't know very many people, can gather on a monthly basis and just exhale, right? Where you
Sure.
can see folks who maybe have similar lived experiences, etc. And so, you've been in New York City, but you certainly come back and forth between New York and Idaho and Abu
Yeah.
Dhabi and everywhere else that you're hitting.
Yeah, this year was Abu Dhabi. Last year was
Yeah,
Dubai.
yeah. Well, why do you think spaces like this are important, and how can we support artists such as you?
I think it's important for, I think it's important for kids especially, but adults, we just go through it. So adults will experience these things, and then we need a place to talk about it, because it's kind of like therapy, to be honest. But for kids, I think it's the most important because I think they need to be able to see themselves in the positions of places and things, doing things and being places where they might not be able to imagine themselves being, whether they're a woman or of any color, or any person of any gender, or whatever it is, any race or ethnicity, that they're able to like see themselves doing whatever it is that they feel like doing, that they can be as authentic as they can. I keep saying the word authentic because I think that has a lot to do with sort of experiencing reality in a way that's very real for each person. There's, as many people as there's opinions about everything, and as many ways to do things. There is many people. So however you get to that final sort of sense of fulfillment and joy in what you're doing, I think has a lot to do with, what you see in the world. So if you see people doing the things that look like, people that look like you doing the things that you love and enjoy doing, then it's much easier for you to go take advantage of those opportunities that may lead to that situation. And of course, if those people that are doing those things, like, it could be anything, any industry really, but if you see people doing things that you want to do as a kid, it makes you feel like you can go and do those things. So I think it's more important for younger generations to see those things. uh, Everyone that's led the way for anyone in civil rights had to have someone before them that made an incremental change. And so it's all about these incremental changes. It doesn't matter if it's 1%. It doesn't even matter if it's 0.5%. It just has to be small incremental changes that make it better for everyone. At the end of the day, it's better for everyone
Yeah,
to
yeah,
have
you're right.
representation for everyone. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know when it started, but just that simple statement, representation matters, truly does, so that you can see yourself and all the opportunities in the continuum
yeah.
of opportunities, regardless of who you are, where you live. So give us a sneak peek, Thomas, into what folks who come to First Fridays Rhythm and Roots, what they can expect from your live sets, any surprises, collaborations, or songs, or type of jazz that you like to play.
We're going to be doing, it's going to be Dan Costello. He's a really fantastic guitarist. He studied classical guitar and then became a jazz guitarist. So he has a really unique way of playing and really unique style. I think he's one of the best musicians in Boise, or even in the Northwest. He could play anywhere with anyone really. But the music we're going to do is going to be some jazz standards and some of our own versions of pop tunes, things like that. So, a little Stevie Wonder, some Broadway, classics like Over the Rainbow, our own versions of these songs, and whatever else comes to mind. We've been collaborating, Dan and I, for probably almost 2 decades now, and we've come up with some pretty interesting arrangements of songs just between the two of us. We always have fun. As long as we have fun, everyone else does. So that's our goal.
Nice. Nice. Well, I am very much looking forward to it, as so many folks are. And so, Thomas, I just want to thank you for sharing your heart, your history, your story, and your sounds with us. Like, again, just to kind of have been able to witness your journey over the years to where you are now, and your willingness to come back to Idaho for First Fridays Boise, to be able to make this event here a special one. Is I appreciate it. If you all viewers out there, if you want to catch Thomas Hutchings live with Dan Costello, and to be part of this unforgettable evening of music, of history, we're going to get a chance to tour the Erma Hayman House. Really
So
cool what they're doing, and the city of Boise has done in renovating this important space right here on River Street in Boise. If you want to come, join us for First Fridays Boise Rhythm and Roots on Friday, May 2nd, here at the Erma Hayman House. Starts at 5:30, goes till 7:30. There'll be networking, appetizers, drink tickets, connecting with our community. What we talk about First Fridays Boise is about connecting and collaborating with your community. So let's have a great time. The weather is beautiful out, as you can see today, and let's enjoy spring together. Tickets are available on any of our platforms here on social media, so feel free to check us out when you get a chance. You can go to our website at firstfridaysboise.com or find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, and you'll have all the information about First Fridays and this particular event and where you can get tickets. And then Thomas is also playing a VIP set, so you can get your tickets for First Friday Boise and a VIP ticket to see Thomas and Anomaly perform at the Lounge at the End of the Universe, starting at 8:30 on May 2nd as well. So make it an evening of jazz and connection with one of your native sons, Thomas Hutchings, here on First Fridays Boise. Thomas, any last words or anything you want to shout out here to our audience?
No, I'm just looking forward to being back in my home state and, you know, representing some New York love, you know, and then vice versa, representing some Idaho love when I get back here. You know, it's nice to be able to have two places that are so different to travel back and forth between. I feel like it feels like I go from one island because I live in Manhattan to another when I get to Idaho. So
That is true. That is definitely true. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for joining us on First Fridays Boise, a spotlight on. It's so great to see you. Looking forward to see you here in a couple weeks here at the Erma Hayman House. A reminder, tickets are available right now, and trust me, this is one that you don't want to miss. This has been Spotlight On with First Fridays Boise. We'll see you soon.
thanks, Angela.